Omnis Protocol. I am Charles, also known as Omnis, and this particular video is a crazy one. I have to tell you, when I was editing it, I remembered this being a crazy game, and there were multiple points where I was like, I do not remember this game being this crazy. So, if there is one game on my channel that you watch all the way through, I would watch this one, because this is one where you could skip ahead 10 minutes and be like, how did the table look like this? But anyway, let's get right here into the game. So this is featuring Defenders versus Spider Foes. Right here, Spider Foes is moving up Green Goblin to aggressively take the civilian on Defender's side of the board. This one is both Infinity Formula and Evacuation, the one that comes with Star-Lord. So, all right, on my Defenders team, we've got Doctor Strange, and then to round out the Defenders side of things, I'm doing Spider-Man and Valkyrie, and then I have included Black Dwarf and Spider-Gwen to round out the team. On the Spider Foes side, we've got Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Venom, Modoc, and Valkyrie. So Valkyrie's on both sides of the table. I already told my opponent that mine was modded to be Tessa, so mine is clearly better. But, okay. So what I'm doing here is Spider-Gwen goes for a attack on Green Goblin to potentially set up where she can then move and grab the civilian on the other side. But I decided to spend for the Defender's leadership, and that resulted in no damage. And so I did not generate any power, so there really wasn't a point in me moving to go after that one. So, at this point, he is going to have a... well, he is not going to have a pass, but he's trying to figure out where Venom wants to go. So he decides in this particular case that he's just going to activate Doc Ock, and Doc Ock is going to move up and pick up the civilian on that side. He does not want to risk also doing a bold play with Doc Ock right into Strange, Spidey, and Black Dwarf, because that will get ugly. So I decide, let's go ahead, even though Gwen did not deal any damage, let's see how things go with Valk. And so she charges in, 5 dice, and then no damage. I did not get any power, so she cannot go for the Defender's leadership. Overall, 1 damage after the 3rd attack. So not a great place to start when someone does a bold play on you where you put 3 attacks into someone and then net an overall 1 damage. Not a good place at all. So not feeling wonderful about that situation over there, but I'm still working things out. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do about this whole thing. So, all right, well, that side of the board is activated, and I just sort of have to deal with what happens over there. So now he wants to put Venom over there to also potentially help protect Green Goblin, since he does have Lethal Protector in this team. So at this point, he's trying to see if he can get onto the Crisis and also be within range 3 of Goblin, and it's going to be really close. So at this point, just trying to like get the templates in the best possible position before he does his last move on Venom. He's definitely going to be able to get in range 3. It's just a question of, can he get in range 3 and be on the Crisis? It's going to be super close. He definitely has range on Goblin. And it ends up just not quite being there. So Venom's not on the Crisis, but that's not really the end of the world in this particular case. Okay. So he has not activated Valkyrie or Modoc. I have not activated Strange, Spider-Man, or Black Dwarf. So at this point, I'm like, all right, well, now I'm feeling like it's time to get Doctor Strange out in the middle of, not have the doctors go at it, basically. I want Doctor Strange to get Doc Ock out in the middle of nowhere. this is one of the really cool things with the way that his push works. So I'm just kind of trying to make sure I advance him up, just kind of barely get him within range 4. And so Doctor Strange is gonna, put a bolt into him. I decide I want to conserve power, and I don't go for the leadership. I do not get a wild, and then I remember that Doctor Strange's push is not on a wild, it is on damage. And I put 4 damage on him in that attack. So I am loading up Doctor Strange with power. That is most certainly a good way to start. And so it's making up a little bit for like how poorly things were going for me on the other side. So I use his push because it's any direction to slide Doc Ock out into the open. And I also notice I have a shield or a block on my attack roll, so I get another power for that. So I think right now Doctor Strange is at like 6 power. Here, I realized this later, but I feel like this was a pretty big mistake on my part to not have Doctor Strange pick up the civilian. And you're going to see why that ends up becoming an issue. I kind of wanted other characters to do it, but also he was just in a really good place to do it, and how the characters were going to like kind of puzzle piece into that spot wasn't great. And so this is just something, looking back, I wish that Doctor Strange had just picked up that civilian. So he moves up with Modoc. He doesn't have a spot where after 1 advance he can shoot Doctor Strange, so he double moves. He's trying to save Valkyrie. So at this point, I'm thinking, all right, it's time for Spider-Man to move up and do some shenanigans and go for impact webbing, and then potentially just webline him in. And now I'm realizing there is the possibility that I just deal him the 1 damage that he has left and do not pull him in. And so I'm trying to figure out exactly where I want Spider-Man to go, and I'm kind of thinking if I leave him on the secure, it's going to be really difficult for Black Dwarf to kind of move his first movement where I want him to go. So it may have potentially been better to have Black Dwarf go first, but so I go for the impact webbing. And I get the 1 damage. So I generate a power, which is great, and he's at 2 power, and Doc Ock is dazed, but now I'm in this awkward spot where, because Doctor Strange didn't pick up the civilian, and I did not put Spider-Man within range 1 of the civilian, and Black Dwarf cannot pick up both of them. So even though I was able to get the civilian off his character to potentially even out the score, I don't have a way to pick up both of them. So I am going to be down points right away, which is not my favorite position to be in. But overall, dazing Doctor Strange kind of makes up, or dazing Doc Ock makes up for the fact that things went so poorly on Green Goblin. So Valkyrie moves up, and she picks up a civilian as well. And he just wants to keep her within 1 because Venom didn't quite get there. All right. So we're kind of both in a position where he's kind of dominating the top, I'm kind of dominating the bottom. The score ends up coming out, it's going to end up being 4-3, because I'm going to have Black Dwarf move up and pick up the civilian that's further up the board, and just realizing I'm just going to have to pick up that back one later. So here's where Black Dwarf moves up into the slot that Spider-Man left, stayed open for him. And then he moves up and takes that one. I wanted him to potentially be within range 2 of both Doc Ock and Modoc and be scary. So he scores 4, I score 3, and so that's going to take us into round 2. So 1 point behind, but let's see if I can find a way to make up this deficit. So on to round 2. All right, it is round 2, and as you can see, the score is 3 for defenders and 4 for spider foes. So at this point, obviously, spider foes is retaining priority, but the big question is what do they want to do with it? Normally in this situation, you would want to activate the character that was prior dazed. They have a bunch of power. But the question is kind of, what is Doc Ock really going to do with that? With Doctor Strange loaded up on power, Doctor Strange could, I mean, Doc Ock can put attacks into Dwarf or Strange or Spider-Man, but all of them are going to be rolling a crap ton of defense dice, and they're near Doctor Strange to potentially just be healed right away. And so there's some question as to whether or not Doc Ock would really accomplish much with that priority position. And so then the question becomes, if he doesn't activate Doc Ock, who is he going to activate? And maybe it needs to be Green Goblin. So what he decides here is that he's going to go ahead and charge with Valkyrie to see if he can potentially take Gwen off the table right away. And so he charges in. She's got 3 dice. But he rolled nothing. Just nothing. And so here we talk about it, and she could stay there and make another attack, but he does not want to load her up with power before she activates. And so since now the odds of actually dazing are extremely low, he decides, let's take the safe play and move Valkyrie back onto the point. So not overall a fantastic start, but you're going to see in this game, we definitely have some spikes up and down where, as you saw, like I had 3 characters deal 1 total damage. That stuff just is going to happen with a lot of medium attacks and medium defenses. Okay. Black Dwarf is now going to activate, and I want to finish off Doc Ock. And I did go for an energy axe with Hex. So overall, I end up dealing 2 damage to the Doc, and I Hex him to deny crits. All right. He's got 4 health left, because on the injured side, he has 6 total stamina. Blocking crits does help. And I get another point on him. And so I spend the power because I ended up generating a total of 3 power, which was perfect to be able to pick up Modoc and throw Modoc at Doc Ock. And he does not, because Modoc is 5 damage, he would need to block 3 to survive, which he does not. So, boom! Doc Ock is gone. The big thing we realize now is that he has well-laid plans, and with Doc Ock off the table, he can't even play it. So maybe it was slightly beneficial that I had not picked up that evacuee yet, because it would be, maybe he could have potentially played it, right away, because I think Green Goblin is exactly 3 power, because I dealt him 1 and he was on the formula. So really what happened here is I am denying a tactics card. So that was a pretty strong play. I mean, Doc Ock is probably the weakest character on his team. So we're just figuring out if Doctor Strange and Modoc are within range 4 of each other after the throw, and they are not. So not sure if that's good or bad yet. We're going to have to see. But my first game with Black Dwarf, and so far I am liking what he does. Okay, so Goblin dropping pumpkin bombs into Gwen. I block nothing and take 3. And I'm incinerated now. He's trying to decide whether he's willing to do the Knight of the Goblin. He decides to spend for it, get some additional dice. From here, we talk about the advantages of like using hit and run or evacuating the civilian, and decide that neither of those 2 are really optimal for him in the situation. We realized I rolled an extra die, but I got 0 blocks, so it really didn't matter. So that Gwen gets dazed. This happened to me a lot with Gwen. I still really like her character, but she's definitely a 3 threat that gets punished for me. So, all right. So Gwen is dazed. I decide what I'm going to do here. I just walk forward because I don't want to make an attack that can potentially get lethal protected. I just want to kind of complicate things for Venom because I know that side of the table is going badly for me. And so I just kind of want to minimize his ability to score at the moment. So I just walk up and I am throwing his Valkyrie away. And then I'm going to walk back onto my point. So just, again, trying to complicate things for Venom. I don't want that side to spiral out of control too much, but obviously it's definitely not looking good for me over there. So he's not currently within range 3. So we talk about some possibility of him walking forward and using web snare to pull her off the point and move Venom onto the point. He's trying to play a very careful, secure game because he's ahead and would like to keep it that way. And he's already gotten a daze, so he web snares, pulls her off the point, and then he just moves over to be within 1 and still be within range 3 of Green Goblin. But Lethal Protector is not active now, but it will be active next round because you'll get 1 normally and the Infinity Formula. All right, now I have Spider-Man and Strange, and he has Modoc. So I decide here I'm going to go for impact webbing on Modoc. But I dealt 0 damage, so we didn't even bother having him roll defense dice. So I use webline and pull Modoc forward, and he bumps into Black Dwarf. And from there, I decide, instead of going for taser webs from Spider-Man, Strange and Spidey both spend 1 each to disarm Modoc. And then Spider-Man backs up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have him pick up the extract, because I do need someone to be holding that. Let's see when I remember to actually move the token. There we go. All right. Spider-Man has the token. I knew that was happening as part of this play. But, so now I've got a disarmed Modoc is the only thing I have left to deal with, which is really not the end of the world. Again, any opportunity that you can have to make it so Modoc doesn't get to do anything too super cool and fancy is generally a good thing. I'm definitely loving Disarm. That card has been such a clutch card for me in so many games. So he decides to spend power to use Bow on Doctor Strange, kind of get him out of position. And then from there, Modoc is moving over onto the secure. He still has an action, and so we're kind of debating, is it worthwhile for him to put a shot into, say, Black Dwarf? It would only be 4 dice, but there is some concerns that he doesn't want to build Black Dwarf up to that throw too quickly. And so where 1 damage could potentially get him at some perfect math. And so he's kind of wavering back and forth. But I believe the final call is to just, let's not risk the attack for 1 damage that could potentially set up for Modoc to take a building to the face that he doesn't want to. So from here, I wanted to see if there's the possibility of me moving up Doctor Strange to be able to be on the point and within range of Modoc. But it does not look like I have the perfect angle to be able to do that. We think I can get Strange within range 4, but I have to walk basically directly towards Modoc. So we decided to go ahead and move Black Dwarf because his exact position. So I am not actually within range 4 at all. So what I'm going to go for over here, I just turned Black Dwarf because I'm going to have a second move with Doctor Strange. And what I'm going to do here is he's going to spend power for Face Me because Modoc is disarmed, so I'm not too worried about the attack. And this gets Modoc off of the point and kind of back in threat range of Black Dwarf. And it means I'm scoring 4 points on this side. So it's currently looking like the way the score is going to go for this round will be 4-4. He does decide to take this attack on Strange, but I don't spend the power for it, and the net result of me rolling 4 dice versus his 4 dice is no damage is dealt, and I rolled a block, so I actually gained a power from that attack. So I guess Face Me kind of only cost me 2, which seems pretty good. But yeah, 4-4, that wraps up round 2. On to the next one. All right, it is round 3. The score is currently 7 for defenders and 8 for spider foes. So there's definitely some interesting stuff that's going to happen right away because we've got Gwen is now on her injured side. There are multiple key characters holding extracts that are potentially in danger zone right now. And I'm deciding if I want to play my Pentagram. So what I'm thinking at the moment is I think that I'm going to be able to basically take over the bottom half of the table, but I'm going to be losing control of the top half. And so what I'm thinking is maybe my last activation is going to be Spider-Man walking up to the pentagram, teleporting over, and then doing another long move, maybe after weblining someone away or something like that. And I'm thinking I probably need to do that now before things get too deep. He also uses Blind Obsession on Goblin, who wants to go Super Murder Town on Gwen. But he doesn't roll particularly well, so no damage gets through on Gwen. For a moment, I'm like, wait a minute, did I roll too many dice? I'm like, oh, no, I'm not incinerated anymore. I got dazed. Okay, second roll, I block nothing, so he gets 3 damage through on Gwen. He loosely considers doing All You've Got, but we discuss it, and with Blind Obsession there, Gwen's not going to do much to Goblin. He now has +2 defense dice against her attacks, and she's not the hardest hitting character to begin with, so nothing too crazy there. So I do decide I'm going to go ahead and activate Gwen now, because I want to try to make it kind of difficult for her to get KO'd right now. And so I have her back up and then webline Goblin kind of off of the point around the corner. And so if I do make an attack here, it doesn't have a high chance of dealing damage, but I get the move anyway, so maybe I try. So we're just going to resolve the move now, and then, but it's going to be as part of her using spider technique. So it's just, for order of activation stuff, technically the attack would happen before the move, but we just figured we'd get her into her final spot. He rolled 0 blocks on 6, on 6 dice, so I do actually get a couple points of damage through. And she also uses med pack to heal up the damage. I'm trying to keep Gwen around. Figuring I don't need the healing on that side of the table, or on the other side of the table, because Doctor Strange is probably going to be able to heal almost any damage that pops up over there. Now he decides that this is probably going to be a Venom turn. So he spends 2 to web snare Gwen. Yeah. So it's a medium move, so it pulls her like straight into the building. And then Venom does not make an attack. He just takes another move so that he can be on the point. And he asks me in this moment, does Valkyrie have to throw him away? I'm like, don't worry, Valkyrie can't throw Venom. He's too big. She can throw a car. She can't throw Venom. All right. He's got Valkyrie and Modoc left. And so I have to do Black Dwarf or Spider-Man at this point, saving Doctor Strange. I decided to go ahead and do Black Dwarf. I go for the defenders. Problem is, I rolled a couple of wilds. I end up dealing no damage. So, sad times. This is why I don't make attacks into Modoc very often. Overall, I am dealing 2 damage on the second attack, but I did not get him hexed. With the 1 damage that was already on him, so I put Modoc up to 3. Here he's contemplating, like, what do we do with Modoc at this point? Does Modoc activate and lay into someone, or is it potentially time for Valkyrie? We're talking about some of the math, like he's back to having 6 dice again, but Doctor Strange does have a fair amount of power, so he can absolutely like raise defensive stats. So it's definitely an interesting decision. But I think here he wants to save Modoc as long as possible, because there's still, Modoc can have a pretty big impact. But he realizes he can pass since I have 3 characters and he has 2, so he passes. I activate Spider-Man, who basically chills. He decides to move up, activate Valkyrie, having her chill. At this point, I'm thinking, all right, well, let's have Valkyrie go up there, and at the very least, I can probably throw her off, but let's charge and see how it goes. I think there's a reasonable chance that I'm able to generate the 2 power to still be able to throw her. So, charge. I got a good roll. Had 2 crits. He blocks none. Takes 5. So she had to get 5 power since it was a strike, and so I spend 2 of it, throw her into the car, and so that she takes the final damage to daze herself, and I pick up her extract. So all of a sudden, Valkyrie, after her like multiple attacks doing nothing, now just comes back around and she's just like, screw non-Tessa Valkyrie. Okay, so now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, this is a good spot for me. This is a very good spot for me. Suddenly I'm feeling like I'm in a kind of a commanding place. But just so you're aware, little foreshadowing, this is where shit starts going crazy. So we talk it out, and we're like, maybe it's time for some Modoc Pentagram bullshit. But he can't get to it, so we start off by using Bow on Black Dwarf, which moves him out of the way. So the idea here is he then walks forward to get within one of the Pentagram and is within range 3 of Spider-Man. So he spends 2 more to then move Spider-Man backwards as well. So shifting a point there. And he's got 1 to use the Pentagram. So, yeah. This is where I'm just wishing the Pentagram hadn't been there at all. And so now he's got 1 attack, and I just one-shotted a Valkyrie, so I'm thinking that my Valkyrie is probably not going to survive this, and I'm kind of sad. I'm blocking 1. He does get a sap. This is where I'm really sad that he gets to, add crits, because I really felt like he should have been hexed at this point. He did not have any power to do rerolls, though. So he does get 5 damage through, and leaving her at 1, and now he gets a bunch of power, because he deals 5 damage, and he saps 1 power, so he goes up to 6. Oh... so sad. Just when I thought Valkyrie had, swung things around, now she's going to get something thrown into her, and, yeah, this is going to be bad. Not pleased. This is where pentagrams can really come back to hurt you. Where literally, if I had just not played this card, this game would probably be over at this point. I would be in such a commanding position that I don't think there would be much that he could have done with Modoc outside of maybe just Days Strange or something, which is pretty unlikely. So he decides to put the extract over by Valkyrie. Obviously, he did get the Days after throwing the size 3 into her. So now things have swung back a bit. I am not pleased, to say the least. It was, but this is MCP, guys. This is the way things go. When there's a chance to adapt to the situation, take it. And Modoc can dig you out of holes. So now I'm trying to decide. I've got Strange left, and I'm not feeling like I have a magnificent play, so I decided to teleport him once. So with the 1 teleport, I decide to throw a bolts at Venom. So I deal 2 damage to Venom. He rolled 0 blocks. And so I push Venom towards Goblin to deny him the point there. I can't get to the extract that he dropped, but I decide to move Strange over there, so I'm still scoring a point, and I can potentially hand out defensive dice and possibly healing. So the score now ends up being 10-9 because I score 3 with the 2 extracts and 1 secure score. He only scores 1. So, man, crazy change of events. Let's move on to round 4. All right. Now, again, we're having so much craziness that there's so many things that can be done. Like, if you were looking at this table right now with how it was just 5 to 10 minutes ago, you're like, what happened? I did decide to zoom in a bit here because the conflict has gotten kind of tightened into the middle. Spider-Man's off screen though at the moment, but he'll come back in. So here he decides that his plan is to potentially use all you've got and have Valkyrie KO Gwen and KO Valkyrie. That's kind of what he's thinking here. So he decides not to pick up the extract because he doesn't want me to be able to control where it falls to. Overall, he's got 3 successes. I have 2 blocks, and so his first attack's only dealing 1 damage. So not a great start there. That was with bonus dice from Doctor Strange. So it looks like he's going to deal 3 more damage. And so that leaves her at 1. Valkyrie spends the 2 to throw Gwen into the building to finish her off, so she's off the table. But it's not really a perfect spot. She only has 2 powers, so now all you've got is off the table. So she just ends her action there. Here is where all of a sudden I'm like, okay, this may be my moment to kind of like try to lock things in. I decide I'm going to have Valkyrie charge. She was already within range 2 of Valkyrie, but I wanted her to be in range where she can pick up the extract. So, Warrior of Legend. At this point, I'm like, I just want to like smoke Valkyrie. I think he could have lethal protected with Venom here. He decides not to, just because this could be a pretty hard-hitting move that could actually finish Venom off. Warrior of Legend gives me a 5th success. So I generate 4 power. I spend 6 to evacuate to immediately gain 2 points, which puts me to 12. And then I spend 2 and toss her into the building. And then I still have an action left, so I just kind of like move her a little further away. So there's definitely some regrets there on my opponent's side. Obviously, I had regretted playing the Pentagram. He's regretting basically not doing the extract play that I went for. Obviously, when dice don't really go your way, it's hard to say whether the power expenditure was quite right. But now, having lost Valkyrie, and he's now behind 3 points, that's swinging things into a tough spot. But he does still have Modoc, Venom, and Goblin to activate, so his stronger characters are all there. So Gwenum moves forward, but he decides he wants to still stay on the secure. He decides not to attack. I'm not 100% sure why in this particular situation. I decide that Dwarf has to go, so I'm just going to like move him to the, to that secure spot. Just need him to score some points. So now he's going to activate Modoc. So he teleports back over. This is again where my Pentagram is biting me in the ass. And so he starts off only dealing 1 overall damage, but he's got a bunch of rerolls. He ends up with 3 wilds, so he saps all 3 power off of Black Dwarf and hits me for 4 damage, bringing me down to 2. And he gained 7 total power out of that. So He rolled 3 skulls, but he still ends up getting to the 2 damage needed to daze Black Dwarf, and then so now he drops the extract, and Modoc can pick it up. We do start talking about it now where he hasn't actually been using the Spider Foes leadership much. I'm not sure how many situations that would have significantly improved things, because he was often trying to conserve power for specific things, but definitely something you want to be keeping in mind. So when you play Spider Foes, use the leadership. So, okay, Modoc has power for rerolls now and has the extract. So another huge Modoc play. I'm sure none of the listeners are surprised that Modoc does good things at this point. If you play MCP, you know Modoc is pretty damn good. So here, Peter moves up onto the point. I decide I want to webline Modoc. The goal here is to, 1, make sure that he's not within 1 of the Pentagram and not within 1 of the Serum. And then after the pull, I'm going to do a Hexing Fist, but I'm still doing physical. I'm dealing 3. He ends up blocking 2 after rerolls, so takes 1. But I do finally have him hexed, which I would have felt way better about this whole thing if he had been hexed a couple of rounds ago. Okay, he has Goblin left, and I have Doctor Strange left. This is where we're trying to figure out a good play for Goblin in this moment. There isn't like a really exceptional play for him at this point, because Doctor Strange isn't a marvelous target. But he does 1 advance, then he declares a hit and run. He's going to drop some bombs into Doctor Strange, but I get to reroll because I'm Doctor Strange. And then he moves from the hit and run and uses the power to hop over there and score that point too. So here, okay, so I'm going to stand still for the moment, put a shot into Venom. I'm thinking here I could daze Venom right now, which would feel pretty good. I am within range 3, so he could so many snacks me if I don't deal very much damage. So, like, what would be worst case would be, like, deal 2. He's blocking 1. I have 2 successes, so I'll be dealing 1. I decide that it's worthwhile for me to reroll all. Now I end up dealing nothing. This is actually a pretty big mistake. I don't realize it at this moment, but with the way the score is going, if I had just taken that 1 damage and pushed Venom off the point, and then Doctor Strange walks onto that, or even stays where he's at, it would have, or sorry, no, he would need to walk over there because Valkyrie's scoring that one. That would have locked in the game for me, but I wasn't counting at that moment. So lesson for everyone, stop and count and see where you're at, especially when you're on the last activation of the round. I do end up dealing the 5 damage to daze him, but that was not really critical. So I'm scoring 3 at the moment. So plus the 2 puts me to 15. And then he's going to score and go up 3. So super close. Let's see how the last round wraps up. All right, this could very well be the defining last moment of the game. I've zoomed in a little bit more, again, just trying to like give you guys as close a view as possible of the remaining space that we're utilizing. So, Venom is now on his injured side. He has priority, and this is where we start realizing that evacuating civilians is going to dictate this game. Like, it's not going to go to the end of the round. So, so what he goes for here is Green Goblin evacuates to go to 14. And now, because Spider-Man is next to a character and really only needs to generate 3 power, and he can generate 1 automatically, so you just need a strike to generate 2, he's in a position where it would potentially end the game on his turn. So he's going for the daze on Spider-Man. He's got 2 crits and a wild. I'm incinerated at this point. So he does get the daze on Spider-Man and does all 5 damage to force me to drop the civilian. So this is going to be essentially the defining moment of the game. There hasn't been a ton of defining moments, but he can't move and pick it up because it did take both attacks. So here, dropping the extract actually ended up falling just off of the screen at the moment, so maybe I shouldn't have zoomed in quite so much. So what we're going to do here is going to see if Doctor Strange can reach it. So he walks once, teleports. So you're like, okay, well maybe that would be as far away as possible, but it's still going to be within range for Doctor Strange to walk over, pick it up. He's at exactly 7 power, so he can spend 1 to teleport and then has 6 to immediate... he has the full 8, so he can teleport, pick it up, and evac. So, that takes me to 17 to 14. Such a close, crazy game. Like, I still cannot fathom how often this game swung things around. So, so crazy. Anyway, awesome game. Loved playing Defenders, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.